I couldn't make ends meet. I could pay my staff, but I couldn't pay myself.
Being on the entrepreneurial path, did you recognize that that was the culture as you were at Harry's or around there? Because like everybody knows everybody. It is such a, like you said, you even said it. Atlanta is a very small, big town,
Is
and in many cases, it can make and break other entrepreneurs.
yeah,
Meaning, like if you know the right people and you've taken care of other people and you've been consistent, that loyalty pays for the rest of your lifetime
it does.
in
Yeah.
so many ways. And people open the doors. But when I may have made a few mistakes in my teenage and early 20s. It's also just, it's got an elephant brain from that standpoint. Do you
Yeah.
feel that the experience that you had at Harry's and before coming into Cook's Warehouse, how did that affect the ability to get the business off the ground? Because
Yeah.
any business is difficult, but
Yes.
this is a very niche business.
Yes.
And I don't want to compare it to Ace Hardware, but it would be like the highest quality where you can go in and you've got everything.
Yeah.
Any small thing that you can't even imagine, you've got it. And I love coming to your store in Ansley, and we've hosted experiences there as well. But it is like I remember growing up, it was like the Radio Shack. If you couldn't find the small little transistor that no one knows about, go to Radio Shack and it's there.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it's the same experience for master chefs and the culinary community within the Atlanta region, and maybe much be obviously beyond that. Tell us kind of how Atlanta shaped Cook's Warehouse and that whole that dynamic that is
Yes.
here and is somewhat unique.
Yeah. Well, you're exactly right that relationships are everything. And, your colleagues that you're here with today, however you build those relationships as you go through life will stay with you, good or bad, right? A lot of it that is true. So the culinary community is a very small, tight-knit community, particularly back then. I mean, Atlanta has exploded over the last 15, 20 years, really 30 years from a culinary perspective. When I worked at these two restaurants in Virginia Highlands, there were not very many high-end fine dining restaurants in the city, and we were on a 2-hour wait every Sunday through Thursday and 3 hours on Friday and Saturday. Like, never stopped, without end. It was like that because there just weren't that many options. So a lot of the chef community knew each other. And when I first started Cook's Warehouse, I started with a cooking school 2 weeks. I mean, that was in my brain. I wanted to sell great tools at work, teach people how to cook. It's that simple. And that's what we do 31 years later. And so the cooking school, the first class was 2 weeks in. And so I pulled from these chef relationships. I mean, all the top chefs from around the city were coming and teaching for me and with me because they were my friends. And I had been in that industry, and we do things together and we hang out together. But I had mentioned that I was turned down 8 times by big banks, and I went to my friend Cece Coffee, who had started a business called Natural Body, which is a spa. I think she wound up with 14 locations in the Southeast, and she sold it last year, finally. But that store was right down the street, down the sidewalk from Indigo. So I called Cece and I said, "Hey, there's this business I want to start, and I can't get a loan. Nobody will talk to me." They're like, "Oh, yeah, whatever, little girl, like go away." And she said, "Well, come over. We'll get in my car and go to Bank Atlanta and talk to my banker, Steve King, small community bank." I mean, literally 15 minutes later, I was in her car and we went to the bank, and I talked to him about this idea, and he said, "I think I can help you."
Wow.
But it was that relationship, and it was the willingness to call her and to, like, you got to do whatever it takes. And when I first started Cooks, I couldn't make ends meet. I could pay my staff, but I couldn't pay myself. And I was talking to one of my part-time employees. I had, 2.5 employees, and she worked for a production company. And I was like, "Well, tell me about your production company. What do y'all do?" "We do commercials for the, food commercials, essentially." And I said, "Well, if you ever need any help, let me know." I mean, I was hustling with second jobs, doing gig work, trying to make ends meet. And so I wound up, she called me the next week and she said, "We need a food stylist." And so I went in and I did food styling for these commercials to make extra money. And then the lead food stylist didn't like doing the work of, putting the bun on the burger or whatever the action was on set, which is what a hand model does. And so I did that work, and because I had been a chef, I was super comfortable with drizzling sauces and working with food, and I wound up being a hand model.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Right. For the next 17 years.
Wow.
I continued doing it because it was super fun. A, it was a lot of money. B, it was super fun, and I could be in the studio for 10 or 12 hours, but I only did maybe 2 hours worth of actual work. So on my computer, I wrote my newsletter, I did my e-blast, I wrote my schedules, I placed orders for my business. So I worked on my own business and did this job at the same time.
I love that.
It's crazy.
I love
I
that.
mean, it's crazy what happens, but yeah.